and knowing that I was never broken. I was never broken. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Laura and here I talk about mental health, minimalism and lifestyle. And today, as I'm sure you can tell, we are going to be talking about mental health. So let's get into it. I wanted to talk through why I've been to therapy with 3 different therapists in 3 different kind of blocks or stages of my life. What I was scared of and what maybe you are also scared of with that whole space, while wondering whether you should go to therapy, and also what I've gained from therapy and why I'm saying that if you're here watching this video, then maybe you should go to therapy. So my video today is not meant to be therapy. I am not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist. This is not meant to be providing professional help in any way, but it is kind of a rundown of my experience and my learnings through that I want to be able to share to help people who are perhaps wondering and will probably see a lot of similarities between my life and theirs and help them to be able to work through it. Because at the end of the day, from my experiences, most people could benefit from therapy. I wanted to say from some sort of therapy, but I don't want to get this confused with this kind of wellness culture that we have, and like trying to look after your wellness is great, but I kind of believe it goes too far sometimes when people will say that going to the gym is their therapy or going for a walk is their therapy. Those things are good for wellness overall, like that's great, but I really don't believe that you can supplement proper medical help for general wellness things. Like you wouldn't want someone to say that going for a walk is their going to the doctor when they're sick. You'd be like, okay, cool, like that's good for you overall, but you know, if you need to go to a doctor, you should actually go to a doctor. This is what I'm trying to communicate here. If you need to go to therapy, you need to actually do that, in my humble opinion. So I want to talk about this in 3 sections. The first is why I've been to therapy on those 3 different occasions. The second is what I was scared of. Most of this was kind of initially, but there have been different things along the way. So I want to talk about what I was scared of, and then I wanted to talk about what I've gained, because I have gained so much from therapy and I am so grateful for it, and I'm so grateful to myself that I was able to work through the things that I was scared of, and actually get to a place where I could go and do the work that I have done and be at the place that I'm at now and still be doing more into the future. So first thing, why I've been to therapy. So like I said, I've been to therapy 3 different times. The first of which was at the end of 2018, and I had a lot going on in my life at the time, and it was kind of that stuff where if you say to people like, oh, this is what I'm dealing with right now, they'd be like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like that's a lot going on. So that was a little more obvious, and I almost kind of went to therapy to just go like, hey, from the outside, if I was anyone else, I would look at this and go, you're going through a lot, you should maybe talk to someone about how you're coping with that. So it was less of an intuitive thing, like a really knowing deep down that I needed to go to therapy. But I think that piece was there, but I wasn't able to listen to it yet. And so the thing that actually led me there was more of this conscious, like, I'm dealing with this and this right now. If I were thinking about this from the point of view of someone else, being like, should that person go to therapy to help them deal with these things? I'd be like, yeah, they definitely should, without necessarily understanding the deep down stuff that was kind of telling me that I needed help and I needed support and I needed someone to be able to talk to about all of the scary things that I kind of had going on. So that first time I didn't super vibe with the therapist, and it was then not as helpful as I would have hoped for. Like, we didn't sort of get down to all the stuff that was really there. So that was still kind of a good introduction, and I wouldn't necessarily say that was a bad experience, but it wasn't quite the right vibe for me. And so if you do go to a therapist and feel like you're not really able to really talk to them about what's going on, and you kind of want them to be able to ask better questions of you, that's okay, right? It's not a one size fits all. So that was the first time. And then from there, I sort of still had these underlying things. And over the next few years, so the next time I went back was in 2021, when I think probably a lot of us ended up in therapy because of the extra stress of COVID, right? During that time, I had started to experience a lot more of what was going on. And I think that COVID helped that along a bit. I don't want to say helped. COVID helped. But it kind of helped things along a bit. And I don't mean having COVID, but I just mean the whole lockdown experience, right? Because I wasn't able to supplement how I was feeling inside with all of this achievement. And that's kind of one thing that I wanted to say about what was going on in my life at this time in 2021, because you know, I wanted to kind of communicate, as one of the first things that I did with my therapist, who I then saw, that I didn't feel like I was like that messed up. Like, I didn't want to be labeled as broken. I didn't want to be labeled as, you have depression and so you're just going to be depressed for the rest of your life. That thought terrified me. Same with anxiety. I didn't want to just be given this label and told, you have anxiety, so now you're going to be anxious for the rest of your life. And from the outside looking in, it was maybe hard to tell, because at this time, through all of this, I have been fully employed. I've been exercising regularly. I have kept and made new friends. I've been involved in my hobbies. I've learnt new skills that I've either learnt from others or taught myself because I've been interested in. I've helped others around me. I've kept like a clean and healthy home. I have a loving and supportive and constructive relationship with my now husband, and we bought a house together when we'd been dating for less than 2 years. And I still feel like I needed and have benefited from all of the therapy that I've had in the last 5 years. So that's kind of what I wanted to say, is that me needing to start going to therapy again in 2021, it didn't necessarily look like what all the posters look like. I say posters, I'm not meaning posters like, look at this great poster. I'm meaning the posters like in the doctor's office saying, are you feeling depressed? Are you feeling X? Are you struggling with Y? Are you whatever? It's not always that simple, because some of us can be really, really great at hiding it. We get really, really good at hiding it. And maybe some of the reasons why you are struggling aren't as obvious to people. And this is kind of the situation that I was dealing with, where it wasn't that I had these really big traumatic things that you could point at and go, oh geez, I had that happen in my life, I should go to therapy to talk about this big thing, because that's, you know, obviously terrible. You know, it wasn't like I'd had a parent die really young, something that's really easy to put your finger on, or had been abducted, or any of the other sort of things that you can look at in a movie and go, oh, see, that's terrible, now that person's going to struggle. I didn't have those. But I still was struggling, and although I was really scared, it got to a point where I then was feeling almost non-functional. There were days when I was so anxious that it felt like nothing I could do was right, and doing nothing was also not right, and I was basically paralyzed from that. I mean, I was still technically getting up and showing up to work and doing everything I was meant to be doing, but I felt so horrible inside. I felt so horrible. And it felt like it took so much out of me to just make myself do all of this stuff that I felt like I was doing terribly at, and I was doing the wrong thing, but I felt like I still had to do it. And I realized that this acceptance that I kind of come to in my mind of the fact that I'm just rubbish at everything, but I just need to do it anyway, it had to stop. It had to stop. And by the time I reached out to a therapist, and I was extremely lucky because I was able to access EAP, which is Employee Assistance Program, not through my employer, but through my husband's employer. It meant that my sessions were paid for, which was amazing. But I had been looking into how I could access therapy for 6 months at this stage, right? So those people out there who have the names of different therapists in your areas that you've researched that are just saved on a little note on your desktop that you keep coming back to, wondering if you need to reach out, I'm telling you, you should. I'm telling you that you should. Because even if you don't logically know it, something inside you is telling you, right? So that was when I reached out in 2021, and I've been seeing that same therapist since. Hasn't been like an every week thing, like I think some people think it kind of has to be, and for some people that is what's needed, and that's what you need. But my experience of seeing my therapist sometimes every 2 weeks, sometimes every month, sometimes every like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, right, is still really valid. And so that may be what works for you and what you're able to do. And so if you can't afford to like see your therapist every week, that's still totally fine. So the third time, because I am still seeing that other therapist, was when myself and my husband went to couples counselling, which I know everyone kind of laughs at, like it's this big joke, or like it's this big failure that you had to go to couples counselling. Like, no, we didn't have to. no one forced us to. No one looked at our relationship and said like, oh, you guys suck together, or you guys are terrible at communicating, or whatever, you need to go. And it wasn't that we sucked together or that we were terrible at communicating, but what we realized was that there was times that we were having where we would just really misunderstand each other, and we'd both end up really, really upset and hurt by the whole kind of interchange of the conversation. Not even the thing that had kind of started the conversation, the issue that had started it, but the whole way that we'd then communicated. We just both felt really cruddy about how it had gone. And we were both trying to communicate in a constructive way, but getting really hurt and really upset. And so we went, okay, let's go see someone to help us like sit down and work through kind of what's going on in these conversations, so that we can figure out where we are maybe misunderstanding each other, etc., and figure out what we can do. So we did that, and again, this was through EAP, through my work this time, because I'd switched employers by this time, and it didn't go smooth sailing, but we worked with it. So in the first initial session, it was so funny. Josh has never been to a therapist, but I have. So we started out, and I kind of said, I was sitting next to Josh, I was like, how about I go first so I can kind of say my thing. So I said my bit, kind of what I knew about myself, what I was dealing with, you know, my own self, and then Josh kind of went ahead and introduced himself. And we were like halfway through the session, and the therapist said to me, she was like, so Laura, did you realize that you shut him down earlier? And I was like, what? You know, like I just interrupted him or told him to stop talking or something. I was like, what? No, when did I? And she said, at the beginning, you put your hand on him to tell him to shush so that you could speak. And I was distraught. I was like, no, what? no, I was just reassuring him that, like, I could go first, because, you know, it's scary when you go to a therapist, right? And you've never met this person, now you're going to tell them all of the difficulties you're dealing with. And I was like, no, I was trying to reassure him that I could talk first and then he could talk after, so he kind of, like, knew vaguely what to say to the therapist. And Josh jumped in and defended me, but I was then really on guard for the rest of this, because I was feeling like I'd been accused of just shutting him down. And I was like, hold on a minute, has the last half hour just been me us telling this therapist about the difficulties that we're having communicating, and she thinks I just, like, shut him down from speaking? And I'm like, oh my god, we're never going to get anywhere on this if this is what she thinks. But anyway, she seemed to take that on board and realize that no, I wasn't just shutting him down. That was genuinely, she'd misinterpreted what was going on there. And we came out of it with some good kind of techniques and some good understandings to deal with that. And we had another 2 sessions with her just as part of that program. And it was really good. And I feel like we have both communicated better because of that. And I've continued to have different kind of realizations about us and also about myself through my therapist who I've been seeing for the last 2 years. Yeah, and it's been good. It's been really good. Okay, so I kind of talked about it in that first session, but the first section, I've been talking about therapy too much. I kind of talked about it in that first section about what I was scared of, but let me just kind of go through that in a bit more detail. So, firstly, I think I was scared that in going to a therapist, I would be invalidated, that I would be told that either what I was experiencing wasn't that bad, that I wasn't actually that anxious, that it's just normal, or that I wasn't that sad and depressed, that it was just normal, or that it didn't sound that bad the way I was describing it, or whatever. So first I was really, really scared that I was going to be invalidated. I'm actually just like tearing up a little bit thinking about it, but that's what I think I was firstly scared of. And I can tell you right now that any therapist who, you know, has you come in, book a session with them, to pay to receive help from them, and tells you that really doesn't sound that bad, I think you should get out of there. Because it's a big deal. It's a really big deal, and I know that we tell this to kids through all of the mental health campaigns and all of the adults, that it's you have to be really brave to get up and say that you need help, right? And I always kind of thought that was silly until I did it, and then I realized that yeah, you do. You do have to be brave, because you really have to put yourself out there. So I would say that firstly, it's perfectly normal, but secondly, that you are worthy of being validated and being heard and having what you are dealing with understood for what it is, and not minimized and not just pushed away and all of that. So scared of invalidation, that's the first one. The second one, I think, and I'm kind of just doing this on the cuff right now, but I would think the second one would be that I was scared that I was just going to be told that that's just how I am. So that it is bad, you know, validated, cool, but that's just kind of how I am. And so because of the things that you had in your childhood, or in the way that your brain has developed, or whatever, this is just how you function. And that's just how you are. And that we can't really fix that, you know. You have anxiety, or you have depression, or you have OCD, and that's just how you are. And even though you're willing to change and you're willing to put in the work, you know, there's not much that we can do. Which kind of sounds crazy when I say it out loud, because there's this whole giant industry of therapy, some of it good, some of it bad, but it's this massive thing, right? And this massive thing is psychology. And I was sitting there feeling like I was going to be told, you know, a death sentence, basically, that this is just how I am, and it's not really anything that we can do. We can kind of talk about it and talk about how much it sucks, but it is how it is. That was the second thing that I was scared of. And the reason why I think that's scary is because you feel like you're going to do all of this work and be really brave and go and talk to someone about this and try try and talk through the things that are happening and not working for you, and that it's not going to get any better. That's what I was scared of, was doing all of that and it not getting any better. And I would say for that one, there's probably better answers that I can give, but coming from the heart right now, I'd say you just have to trust it. You have to trust that it will get better, and that if you can go out there and do the work, that it will get better. Yeah. I suppose the third thing that I was scared of was that this whole thing meant that I wasn't as good as other people, or I wasn't going to be as successful as other people. And I kind of wanted to run away from that fact, because I felt like if I was diagnosed as having something, or just even the fact that I needed therapy, meant that I wasn't as capable as other people. And what I've really learnt is that everyone is dealing with something, and everyone has stuff happen to them in their lives that they have to deal with. And I really truly believe that the more you can learn about yourself and about how you tend to cope with things or tend to deal with things, and about what's important to you, and about what upsets you, and about what, I know I already said what's important to you, but yeah, about what's important to you, the better you are going to be at dealing with things when they do happen. Because I see people around me that I know, who I care about, who I know a lot or who I know a little bit about, that I can see are kind of blindly struggling through things and not really understand what's happening to them. And I feel like I have a lot more understanding about what I am dealing with. And maybe that's just my bias because I see my scenario. But having spoken with these people about what they're dealing with, I feel like I have learned to be more honest with myself about what's important to me, what's going on, how it's affecting me, and therefore what I should be doing. And going through that process of something happens to me, how do I feel about it, what's important to me, what do I actually care about, how can I react to this in a way that brings me peace, or how can I react to this in a way that gives me what's important to me, and knowing that and practicing that. And it makes me feel more capable rather than less capable, being someone who's gone to therapy and worked through these things, rather than being someone who's managed to go, nah, I'm fine, I'm just going to carry on, it is what it is, don't worry about it. Yeah, so I'd say those are the main things that I was scared of and how I kind of dealt with them. Alright, the third section, and why we are all here, because therapy gave me back my life. So let's talk about what I gained through therapy. Medical bills. No, I'm kidding. But I think it should be, it's important to kind of phrase it that therapy can be expensive, and I've been very lucky in the way that I've been able to access mine. But yeah, just that little caveat there, that I think it's so important, and you will probably never regret the money that you spend on it, but it can be expensive. But what did I gain like personally from this? So in no particular order, because I'm just going to kind of let these thoughts come to me and just see what happens. I have gained an appreciation for myself, because I have learnt so much more about me and about the way that I had learnt and have learnt to cope with things and deal with the world, and what's important to me and all of that. So I've just gained a much greater appreciation for myself and for what I do and what I contribute and all of that. And so that's been a really beautiful thing. I've gained a better understanding of myself, but also of kind of important people around me. to know how people tend to react and how I tend to react, right? And it sounds like it's a minimal thing, like knowing how you tend to react, like, okay. But it's so, so, so important, because when you've built up habits over 20 years plus of your life, knowing what those are and where they help and where they don't help has been really, really, really amazing. Just really amazing. It has. I've gained a lot more understanding about why I have the difficulties that I have, and through that have lost a lot of shame and guilt around why I struggle with the things that I struggle with. And this is something that is still kind of triggering for me, and I know that we use that word way too much, but I genuinely mean it when I see interactions happening between, a lot of the time, like kids and people that they're with, that I know are just really not helping that kid to be fair on themselves. And that's something that I had massively struggled with, and an understanding of why I did and do the things that I did and do, and being able to remove the shame and guilt from that has just been incredible. Because it's not like I just woke up one day and decided that I was going to be a perfectionist. I didn't just wake up one day at like 8 years old or something and be like, you know what, I'm just going to look for all of the possibilities in the universe to show how this thing could have been better, and then tell myself that that's how it should have been, and there you go, and I'm just going to feel terrible about myself all the time because of it. That is a great way to deal with life. Oh, and now I've got all these people when I'm 15, 16, 18, 20, 22 telling me that I shouldn't be so much of a perfectionist. And it can bring on so much guilt and shame to feel like you are struggling because of something that you're doing. So just stop doing that. It kills me, honestly, it does. So to know that that was a way of coping with things, and that happened along the way, but it wasn't you choosing to do it, and that it's not really fair for people to just say to you randomly to just not do that is, yeah, it was a huge deal. And it wasn't just with that, it was with a bunch of stuff, but being able to remove that guilt and shame from it and just see it for what it is, and know that I can now change that. But actually it takes a while and it takes a lot, because if that's been your habit of thinking for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that takes a lot. And so knowing how I can start to address that, but then also appreciating for myself that that's a really hard thing to do, because that's been my way of coping, and that was the only way that my little brain could figure out how to cope at that time, has just been a big deal. Sorry, that was like the most confusing point ever, but I hope that you got something from that. It's given me a better quality of life to know that I can feel a certain way every day, and that doesn't have to be right down here, that it can be up here. And I say every day, I mean sort of on an everyday basis, not literally every day all the time. You know, sometimes you still have difficult days and there'll be things that happen, and that's totally fine. But my expectation now for how I'm going to feel based on what I'm doing in my day, my activities, my interactions with people, either personally or at work or whatever, my expectation is a lot higher than it used to be. I am no longer okay with feeling down here. I'm not okay with that anymore. I'm not going to put up with that anymore. That's not what I'm about. I want to be feeling up here as much as I can. And now maybe I actually, in the next couple of years, want to get to feeling like up here, like above the camera. See that? Above the camera. Yeah. But I'm no longer going to allow myself to be down here and just accept that that's my lot, that's just how my life is, and that's just what it's going to be. I just don't do it anymore. I just don't. I think the craziest shift in my brain that has happened through going to therapy is that I went from feeling like I don't want anyone to find out that I'm broken and tell me that I can never properly get out of this, and this is just how I am, and here's a couple of techniques to kind of make it easier, but that's basically how you are, to feeling so much love and appreciation for myself as to how I got through things in the past and how willing I am to put in the work to make things better for myself and for the people that I care about now, and knowing that I was never broken. I was never broken. And I think that's the most beautiful thing, is that you have to get past that fear and open yourself up to someone or to people that you can trust, and be scared of them telling you that you're broken, for them to be able to show you that you're amazing, that you're so much more than you thought you were. And that is why I feel like therapy has given me my life back. And it was a better life than I ever knew I could have. Whew. Alright, so after that super light, easy, breezy video today, I mean, I don't know what I expected, but anyway, here we are. Thank you so much for being here today. I see you. I appreciate you. And I hope that you can get to a place where you can appreciate yourself as much as the people around you who love you and care about you do too. So let me know down below if you've got any thoughts or any questions, or anything you kind of want help with, or pointing towards resources, because I've done a lot of my own kind of research about this kind of stuff. And take care. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more of this content or have more of these deeper conversations. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye.